Fantastic.
Spontaneous is the only way. So.
Okay, folks, here we are. Welcome to Feel the Force. We have a very special guest today, Vera Mygdala. And instead of introducing, preliminarily beforehand, as I used to do, I thought, Vera, you could introduce yourself really and talk about, well, kind of how we, met back in Marazion, etc. There's a lot to really feel into because of like the new Aquarian energies coming in through the earth right now, and so I'll just give you the ball.
Oh, thank you so much.
For now.
Well,
Yes.
first of all, it's so nice to reconnect, Jesse, and it's great to see you
Yeah.
in such a relaxed state. That's amazing. And yeah, how did we meet? I think that was in 2016. You were one of the first people I met completely by synchronicity in the physical.
Synchronicity. Yeah.
And it was me being like, I broke free from all my former restraints in the corporate world, and yeah, went traveling with my camper van, and my first destination intuitively was England.
Yeah.
And so I was, yeah, just following my impulses, following the intuition. And at some point I had like, I ended up in Cornwall, and I just didn't really know where to go next. But then I looked at the map. I saw Marazion on the map, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go there. I don't know why, but I really need to go there. And I didn't know anything about anything really. And I booked a campground there, and I went to the local pub. I read a book about, I think, energy work or something,
Energy.
sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a nice young man, a waiter, came up to me and asked me what I wanted to do, and started a conversation about the book that I'm reading. And that was you, Jesse. And ever since, well, you told me a lot back then about the ley lines crossing and Marazion and St. Michael's Mount, and you gave me a tour. And ever since, we've just been connected. And I came back to Cornwall to hold a retreat in 2017 that you were a part of.
Yes.
And yeah, so it just continued on our quest, and we always stayed connected.
Absolutely. So Vera is a sort of a new earth nomad, part of the fast forward movement, whereby everything, you just let go of everything you once knew, all of the old paradigms and conditions, and you go deep into that in your blog, the wake up experience.eu.
Yeah.
And obviously you well, kind of founded Absolutia, is like the symbolic representation of the new earth, and where the earth energies and cosmic energies are carrying us in the so-called ascension into 5D, right? And
right.
And it's just great to I don't know if the term is right, light workers, grid workers, these are just labels, right? But to like connect,
everything.
Yeah, connect across the grid, and realize that, yeah, you might be feeling alone, but you're never alone, because being alone is being all one, right?
Right.
So yeah. So to kind of, for those who are watching who want to kind of let go, they're in the phase of letting go of the old. It's a bit scary for the mind to actually follow like intuitive impulses, because we're kind of conditioned to to question everything and second guess yourself, and that kind of keeps you stuck in this conditional loop, or you're not really moving forward, right?
Yeah.
So how, because you also wrote a book called, what was it
True
called?
romance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. um, Thank you for ruining my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very
So
fitting.
I assume that was a journey of just completely well, carrying on from the previous interview, because they're all interconnected, because we're all one. About what John had to say about completely falling not just to your knees, but to all the way down, and just like
Yeah.
losing everything, and just feeling this blizzard of triggers, that just show your conditioning,
Right.
and what you need to let go of.
Yeah.
So for you, um, from an outside perspective, I guess, was it just frustration, and did that frustration lead to courage, or was it something deeper than that that made you
Yeah. Well, I would say it was a combination of many things. I would say frustration was there my whole life. I never really understood life on this planet. At the same time, I was deeply asleep, and I just, assumed, okay, that's just what life is. And although it doesn't make any sense, and I couldn't understand the human as a species, but I guess at some point you just forget about all of that, and you just start to fit in and start to play that game because everyone plays it.
yeah.
And but the frustration with it was always there. I could never, no matter what I did, like I changed my careers many times. I changed location many times, which is a typical thing when you're looking for something that you're not even sure what you're looking for, but you just never feel comfortable no matter where you go, until you realize, you're always taking yourself with you, so there must be something about you that needs to change, because no matter how much you change in your outside perception, it will always lead to the same frustration and the same result. um, and then you start this journey into more awareness, and that was for me, like, I was still in the corporate world, but I got really sick, burnout, slip disc, and I couldn't move anymore. And so I was lying in bed and I was really questioning everything. And that's when somebody gave me the book of Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And I read that, and although I didn't understand much back then, it did something with me, because I was fascinated by the now. It's like, wow, fuck, how do you even get there? We're never in the now.
Yeah.
And it just fascinated me, and I really started observing myself in a different way. And what happened then was like a journey of like just exploring energy more. I went into alternative methods of healing with my back issue, was fascinated by the practitioner I saw, and I wanted to learn more about energies. I was fascinated by that. So that's what I did. Um, and I got a Reiki training, and I just learned to tune more into that force field, feel the force, instead of just thinking and seeing everything as a mechanical kind of reality that is solid. And then I thought, okay, all good. I just need to change my job because I'm not very happy with that. And I'm going to open up a healing center or something. So I started a whole project with people that were also interested in it, trying to find investors in the place that I was living in Germany. And I went to a retreat in Italy for a week. And then I met a guy that turned my whole life upside down. I was married back then. We had just built a house. I had a great career. Huh?
Was he Italian?
No, he was Dutch.
Oh, he's Dutch. Okay.
A Dutch guy. Yeah.
Yeah, these Italians.
What?
I was gonna say these Italians.
Yeah, no, but it was the Italian energy for sure. Anyways, I thought I had fallen madly in love because what happened there, I just couldn't, like, there's no reference point for it in your, what the mind always does is when you have an experience, it tries to reference it to something you already know.
Mm.
And I just couldn't, like, I couldn't even like describe how powerful these energies were. I was completely thrown off my feet. And I went back from that retreat and I gave up my whole life immediately for this person. I filed for divorce, and it was a good divorce with my husband. We decided to sell the house. We actually lived still together there for half a year, so we got along great. But it just threw everything like out of that, regular flow, that life just evolves, and you take like one step at a time, and it just completely created chaos in an instant. And so I got ready to basically just move to the Netherlands and be with the guy. And then he said all of a sudden, "Oh no, I'm not sure if I want that anymore." And that's when I started like trying to figure out, what the fuck is this? How can someone just forget about what we had and not remember, or only remember it as an intense physical sexual attraction, which was his mind referencing it to something he knew. And I was referencing it to a deep romance, like finding the one. And yeah, it turned out to be what we would label as a twin flame dynamic.
Sure.
And that kept me busy for like 4 years nonstop. Many ups and downs, and we met and we, crashed again. And it was a permanent catalyzing and cleansing and catalyzing and cleansing. And I learned a lot about the dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think you go in loops, but actually go forward when you really embrace what's happening, when you're not staying attached, remaining attached to the story of the one or the romance or whatever, and you need to end up together.
Yes.
But really letting go of that and realizing this is your wake-up call to liberate yourself completely from any codependency you've ever carried in your system, of any control mechanism, because nothing works in these connections like you're used to, that you can manipulate or you can, try to make the other one do something. Nothing of that works. So you really need to get over it. And that's what happened there, for 4 years, until I really came to a point where I felt free. I really felt free of any old like idea of what a relationship should look like, because we learned the codependent way. That's all. We learned the conditional way of loving, which is actually fear in disguise, because we think we can't do it alone. We can't live alone. We need that other one to make us whole. And that it's a fascinating journey, but it is painful, and it involves a lot of suffering in the beginning, because you just don't know what's happening.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's why I wrote that book, to assist people who are going through an experience like that. And there's many, because that's what's happening right now on this planet, is it's freeing itself from all the codependencies, because we're switching over to a new game, from conditional to unconditional, and from mind-based to heart-based living. So we're like actually logging out of the old game platform, the old game environment, and we're logging into something new. But we can only switch over when we're empty, when we're not carrying any of the old software, so to speak, the old programming. And that's why I had that impulse again. I mean, I didn't plan to write the book, but it actually came through within 2 days and was published and online within these 2 days. So I knew it needed to be written.
It was a good flow then.
Yeah, well, it's always like that. I never write with a human, like mind-based plan, or like that I need to write something to whatever, keep my follower base or to serve an expectation out there. I learned that very soon, that that's just not working, because it's not the right energy. And it takes a lot of effort and makes you very tired to continuously serve that expectation. And you create another codependency that way, because people are waiting for you to say something every week in that case. And at the same time, you need that energy of all the people to keep your business running. So,
Yes, it's a
no matter where you look at in this old game, or John would call it the dream, the old dream, it's all conditional. The base algorithm of this whole game is conditional duality, plus and minus, not co-creating, but working against each other, really.
yeah. I've noticed that. Yeah, currently I'm attending a 5-day Tony Robbins event.
Oh, interesting.
And it's great. I mean, it's fun. I can see through it that it's just all dreamy stuff, you know.
Yeah,
And yeah, it does get your energy up and more like woohoo. But
yeah,
the thing, what I've noticed is that it's still the old paradigm, conditional kind of codependent thing. Like you need to, you know, prove yourself to the world, and there's competition out there, and you need to add value to the world, you know, otherwise you won't be seen. And you know, you gotta, you know.
I mean, look at Tony Robbins' business model. It's the same thing. It's a codependency. It's
Yeah.
he needs his customers, and his customers need something from him.
Yeah.
And that's perfect. In
Yeah.
that dimension, that is absolutely perfect and true. In the old game, it's the only way it works.
Yeah.
But we now have that opportunity to create a new dream. It's also a dream because it always is.
Yeah.
Us itself as the whole, we're just empty. And then we're whatever, floating there as a blob, and we're not doing anything. And
Yes.
so we just play as
Exactly.
a whole. And now we've created a completely new platform, so to speak,
Absolutely.
where we can play a new game.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful and so important, because that really excites the inner child that's waiting to like, yes, yes, yeah, you know. And but you know, there will be a lot of people watching who are like, yeah, but what about survival? What about putting food on my kids' tables? You know, what about paying my fucking bills? You know, and what's this 5D crap? You know.
And that's
And,
understandable, because that's the old game. That's all we have ever learned. And our mind only knows that game. Again, it's the reference. The mind can only reference to something it already knows, because the mind is past and future. It's always going, like, it takes an experience it had in the past and it projects it into the future. It's never here and now, and it does not trust that we are actually part of this whole universe. We're part of the organism
yes.
that's taking place every day. If you look around yourself, if there's some nature, and you just tune into how nature works, we are part of that, but we've forgotten about it. And nature, this whole organism, always takes care of every single participant in
Yes.
it. But we're not participating anymore. We're actually
Disconnect.
playing against that. We're actually exploiting instead of contributing and being part of that circle of life.
Yeah.
And that is going to be that's basically the whole journey we go through, is that remembrance of we're one. It's all us.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually it's all me, the self. You are me. I'm an aspect of I was just having this conversation this morning with Agusti, that the next step for people who are on this journey is to learn that when you extend your perception of you in your body to everything, that you are the universe and everything in it. You know, when you do your spiritual work, your inner child work, you're like embracing yourself first. You're like the small self that you are. You're embracing your feelings, you're embracing your thoughts. You're no longer judging, you're no longer, you know, like questioning, you're no longer blaming yourself, and so on. So you're learning to love yourself unconditionally without judging any longer. And once you've gone through that process, you realize, oh, it's not only the small me, everything is me, the self.
Yeah.
So you do that same thing with everything and everyone that you see in your reality, because it's all you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's for the mind impossible to understand, because the mind has been trained in separation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's why what John calls self-inquiry, why that can help when you start asking like, who am I?
Mm.
And you realize you're all of it, that's when you can really start embracing everything as you. You might still be in the game and have that perception that you're separate sometimes, but at the same time, something in you knows no matter who I talk to, no matter where I am, it's all me and it's all part of me, of that bigger body that we're all in. And that makes it so much easier to overcome judgment and to overcome separation and
Yeah.
to really take the mirror and see it. It's all you, and you are the creator.
Yes.
All of all of it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Yeah. That was the sort of revelation I came to after, well, obviously interviewing John, and that was a huge
yeah,
paradigm shift for me because it was confirmation of what I was always knowing at a deeper level, like through the philosophy of Alan Watts,
yeah,
and how he relayed that truth, that essential truth,
yeah,
with such eloquence and humor,
right.
and
I love him too.
you know,
Great.
that
Was a great.
you are the universe, you are
Yeah,
that,
you are that.
and to have that sort of like cross-referencing of realizing I have been, we have been like all along self-realized, because you the idea of having add-ons to the self is illusory.
Yeah,
But the Latin for illusion, ludere, means play. So even though it's an illusion, there's a lot of like negative connotations to illusions, like, oh, it's an illusion, you must renounce the illusion
yeah,
of Maya. But no, you're meant to play in the illusion. You
exactly.
know,
Until it gets boring, until you're done playing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that is why, like you can't make people play faster
Mm,
or go faster. And that's not the point either, because everyone needs to have their own experience. And you can, it's like kids who learn something, who learn a new game or a new skill. It's not done overnight. You just continue to practice and you find out as you go and you learn as you go. And when you look at it that way, you can relax a lot more, because everyone needs to experience that on their own first
mm,
before they come to that point of a new insight or a new awakening or a new gate that they can pass.
yeah,
But that is really our own responsibility, in the sense of a part of the whole, to hold the space
mm-hmm,
for the rest of us to go exactly the speed that they can go. We can't accelerate it for them, and we can't make them see something they're not ready to see yet.
yeah,
And that's not the point either, because if everything happened at once, it would just all fall apart, because it'd be
yeah,
so chaotic. And we know how intense the awakening process is, and how you often lose your mind and you're not functioning and you're just going completely mad. I mean, imagine all humanity would go through that at the same time. That would be
mm.
that would destroy the game
It
immediately.
would, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's like at a swimming pool, like people need to, queue up to take their individual dive,
right,
instead of,
right,
if it was everyone at the same time, it would be,
exactly.
but
And that, by the way, applies to yourself too. Like each individual, because often, like what we do is we compare. Oh, but this person or that guru is so much further than I am in the process, and I want to be there. I don't want to be here. That's exactly, again, the mind not having the patience and not wanting to play the game and wanting to skip the experience
yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
just find that loophole,
Yeah,
to get from A to B the quickest possible. But that's not the point either. We just need to trust our own individual process
yeah,
um, within that game. Again, It's
Yeah.
all a
And
game.
that's because everyone is a unique source code, right? It's like
Yeah, I mean, we
every,
do share a general source code, but at the same time, we all have our unique coding through our
yeah,
DNA. I would call it the essence
yeah.
of each one of us. Um, Basically, the way you could see it is when we are source all together, and then we start a game, we project out into all these different aspects and essences. We're still all one, but in this specific game we've been playing here on this planet with duality, we forgot about the fact that we're all one. So although we see all these aspects, and each aspect you see, and it's not only humans, it's everything, it's rocks, it's plants, it's animals, each one has consciousness and is collecting experience for the whole, and to learn together. But we think we're separate in this game
Mm.
until we like start remembering on this quest back home, which is actually like fast forward is actually going backward, because we go back to our origin before we've been enveloped in conditioning, and all we do is develop until until we are that pure essence again in terms of remembering it. It's really just, we always are that essence, but we're so wrapped up
Yeah.
in the condition that we forgot about it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, how do we go about the process of actually dissolving the conditioning? Can that be done? Because for me, it's still like a mystery, because I still have a lot of codependent patterns in myself.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of habits that don't serve me that I'm still hanging on to, for example. And how does it happen? How do we let go? You know?
Well, first of all, the good thing is, and that's like what most people don't even have, is the awareness that you carry a conditioning. Because that's always the start. When you start seeing conditioning and when you start seeing patterns, you start observing yourself. And automatically, when you observe yourself, you're not yourself anymore, because something observes you.
Mm.
Someone observes you. So you go actually outside of your limited perception that you had before, your limited lens of perception of what the world is, and you start like zooming out and observing yourself in that larger field. And that's why the mind is important. A lot of spiritual teachings say, forget about the mind. The mind is the enemy. The mind is misguiding you. But at the same time, when you take your mind onto this journey, when you share your observations with your mind, your epiphanies that you have when you're out there, your mind has a much easier time to let go. When you try to, like block your thoughts, or when you try to keep your mind still, actually that tells you the mind's not still.
Yeah.
Which is on a larger view not true. So when you start trusting your own mind instead of mistrusting your mind, and realizing your mind is capable of so much more, if you take the mind on the journey and you start explaining the process in a more logical way, the mind is much more open to allow the heart to take over and to surrender. The way is always surrender. And we know how hard it is to get into a place of true surrender, because the mind always runs all options first. That's what the mind is trained to do, to keep you safe. That's the old game, keep you safe. Survival game. So the mind is just doing what it was designed to do.
Yes.
At the same time, it can be reprogrammed. It's like the how do you call it in a computer? The processor. It can be reprogrammed and read a different software. The hardware can be upgraded. So what you do with that when you take the mind onto your journey, and that's a big part why I wrote that whole website, the Wake Up Experience, and what we also do with the Fast Forward movement, is give the mind new reference points. Because the mind needs a story. The mind needs a narrative for any transition it goes through. If the mind doesn't have any information to read, it totally collapses, and that's when you go mad, because you don't know what's going on anymore, what's right or wrong, and then you usually collapse completely. So if you give the mind a continuity, makes it so much easier for the mind to make the transition than when you try to, jump from A to B without explaining anything to your mind. The mind just needs reference points. When you give these reference points, then the mind can start relating. So that's why the wisdom is important. You can get totally lost in it and forget about the rest. That's not the point either. It's a mix of, calming the mind instead of stilling the mind. When the mind understands, it's still. Yeah. The mind is only upset when it doesn't understand what's happening, when there's a cognitive dissonance. Yeah. And it doesn't know what to do with it. So when it receives a reference point, it can calm down again. So then you have your mind calm down. Yeah. By giving it a good explanation. And instead of tuning into old narratives, like this is why that and that and that happened. And a lot of people right now with the whole Trump, whatever conspiracy, they just try to find the new narrative, why something didn't happen. So there must be something that went wrong and blah, 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 blah. And so the mind wants to find that narrative in the old, but instead give the mind a narrative in the new.
Sure, yeah.
Like metaphysical explanation or a reference point to unconditional living and. So the wake up experience was designed for that. Fast forward movement is actually like for a collective, creating a reference point, how a new society could look like. And we've also written out the source code, the new source code, which the new game runs on. So if you give your mind something like that, it can relate much faster. When you have the mind still, you go to your emotional part, which is just as important, to embrace your feelings and not judging them, not pushing them away, not trying to justify them, but really just embracing them and welcoming them and feeling them. That's our alchemical power, is the emotion. We can't transform anything with the mind. We can just reference with the mind. But the real transformation of energy in this universe, in this, like, that has these laws, that dream has this algorithm, the only way we can transform is through feeling emotion without any judgment, without any blame, without any projection, by basically just embracing. And that's super hard because we have learned that's not the way.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's a continuous practice. And again, observation, how am I behaving with this trigger? We get triggers from everywhere. Yeah. Do I just take them in? Do I feel them? Do I reflect? Or do I go into a fight, flight, freeze mode? Do I attack? Do I run away? Do I, do nothing?
Yeah.
The moment we start embracing the emotions, when we become really vulnerable, that becomes your biggest empowerment, because that's how you transform the pattern.
Yes.
The pattern is not transformed by the mind. The mind can only recognize the pattern, can observe the pattern, but the real work is done by feeling.
Yeah.
That's how you dissolve the pattern, how you rewrite the script. And there's many ways you can do that. I would agree with John, the most easiest way to do is self-inquiry, because it strips away all the rest, and it also strips away the codependency with any specific method. But there's many ways. There's no right or wrong, as long as you really start doing the work and embracing instead of rejecting.
Yes.
And the third part is the physical part. And the physical body, again, in this environment where we have a thing called gravity in this dream, which was designed specifically as one of the laws in this universe, that we have gravity. So gravity keeps you down. It keeps you heavy. And with the emotional work, you get the gravity like lighter, and at a point it shifts over to the physical, because even in the physical you have stored a lot of cellular memory, and the whole body starts releasing, and it actually becomes lighter. And it is a long process, and as long as you still suffer, that's also something John always keeps saying, is there's pain and there's suffering. Pain is a given, but suffering is optional, which sounds paradox. Mm-hmm. But the the suffering is the story in the mind. The mind makes up a story why you are in pain. And when you just identify with the story, no matter if it's a physical pain or it's an emotional pain or it's a mental suffering, when you go beyond the story and you just allow and you see it as a necessary part of your own process and awakening, and that it actually serves you to become lighter. Every trigger serves you to become lighter if you take it. And it's really, I mean, it's a permanent dying. Every trigger, like every trigger pull towards you, you get a shot in the face and you die a little bit more. But that's exactly the point. Your old self, your false self, your ego, whatever you want to call it, it needs to die. Because if not, you cannot start the new game. The new game has a completely different source code, different environment, different algorithm. And I think we said it somewhere on our website. You can't play Jumanji with Monopoly money. Two different games with two completely different rules, set of rules. It's just different.
You can't really, as you said, mix dimensions.
Yeah, until you can. I mean, the funny part is you can't really mix them because it's like oil and water, different frequencies. Again, law of this universe, which in itself is not real, but in this game, it's real. But what you can do is you can walk through the dimension and you can still interact. You can still go to a store and buy some food as long as you still need food. But nothing sticks on you anymore.
Yeah.
So you're walking through it without being off it. And that's when you realize, wow, I'm free. None of the old hooks that the matrix offers you everywhere, nothing sticks anymore. And you just lose interest in engaging in anything. Because you see through, you see the back end, you see the algorithm, and all that makes it so colorful in the old world is all these different narratives. And it doesn't matter if it's earthly narratives, if it's conspiracy, if it's whatever, big tech, censorship, blah, 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 if it's the revolution that is coming, or if it's the, whatever, the spiritual part, the event, and the aliens are going to come and save us, and there's going to be a solar flash. It's all just stories, to keep it interesting and to keep you distracted. And at the same time, at some point, you just see the back end pattern, that all the stories run on that same algorithm. All the movies that you've been watching have that same basic pattern in them. It's all in the conditional, if this, then that. And it's all about the hero and the villain, about the good and the bad, the Satan and the God, and it's all the same. Yeah. And that's when you realize, oh, okay, boring, done, ready for a new game.
Sure, yeah. That's so interesting because, well, ever since the beginning of last year, I kind of deliberately how do I say it? Kind of stepped away from 5D and did some deep immersion work in 3D and 4D, and feeling the fear in the collective about the whole corona thing and the emerging conspiracy theories, and just feeling into all that fear and getting really emotional myself and reacting profoundly. And it brought up all these emotions I didn't realize that were in there, and they were just intense dread and fear, and like I felt like my viscera was like scrunching up, and it felt like an inner crucifixion, and subsequently with the whole election thing and all that, and I realized I've been playing the role of a light warrior, but I realized that the more I've been fighting for the light and taking that role too seriously and personally, it's fucking exhausting.
Right.
So it's so exhausting. And I realized that
exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. And I realized that if you really are the light, you will realize that this is actually just a game of the one self, you know, playing hide and seek with itself, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
So,
exactly what it is.
yeah. And I've been really judging myself for being really quite very trigger happy and sort of, you know, on the conspiracy bandwagon and losing friends, you know, over, you know, masks and, you know, the Trump situation, and
Yeah.
um, and just and when I step away from it, I realize, wait a second, why am I taking this so seriously?
Yeah.
But you know, in the moment, with all those fucking emotions going on inside, it feels so real. You know, it feels so real,
It
and
is.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah,
And nothing can really pull you out of that either. And you're not supposed to pull yourself out of that,
mm,
because that's exactly, it's such an important part of the awakening,
mm,
is to fall into this deep despair and
mm,
to experience these dark nights of the soul, what many people call it, this deep depression that goes so beyond any of just your like perception of your own stuff, because you're suffering basically for the whole planet,
yeah,
for the whole humanity. And at the same time, you need to learn even that is just happening for me, because I can liberate myself from all this baggage emotionally, cellular memory wise, that I've been carrying. And the only way we can collectively shift into a new paradigm is by every single one doing the work you're doing,
yeah,
looking at all these shadow parts. And it's not about just sitting there singing happily and praising the love and light without doing the shadow work.
mm,
It stays absolutely superficial, and nothing ever changes by just sitting there and meditating and saying, hey, everything's love and light, and I'm sending love and light to the whole world. That's the one part, like one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is being that light warrior and trying to convince everyone
mm,
that everything's dark and that we need to shift out of it.
yeah, yeah,
So once you see all of that,
yeah,
you automatically start your journey out of it. But at the same time, you can't start it until you see it. And this whole exhaustion
yeah,
is so necessary, because the only way you truly break down and you truly surrender is when you're exhausted and
yes,
when your mind does no longer see any option it knows.
yeah,
That's when you surrender, and that's when you open up to, like, okay, just whatever. I don't care if I die anymore. I don't care if something happens. Just, like, here I am, do whatever with me. And that's when things start shifting and when miracles start happening and when you feel lighter and when you realize, wow, I am really part of that organism, because the screen just continues moving. Although I'm not doing nothing, stuff happens. I'm still safe. I'm still taken care of. It
yes,
never
yeah.
stops. Yeah.
So it's
It's really like,
basically,
Super Mario. It just keeps moving.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, an analogy came into me. It's like you threw yourself into the story, and it feels real because you have front row seats,
Right.
basically. And
Basically.
that's why it feels very kind of upfront and personal. Because
Absolutely. I don't
it's,
know if you've ever seen Ready Player One.
yes, yes, yeah,
That's kind of how it is, really.
yeah,
And also, I love this movie out of so many reasons, because it is really this dream world that's been created where most people spend their life. And at the same time, there's so many hints of, that you need to go backwards to actually find a key, instead of like trying to get better at the game, what everyone does, trying to train harder, trying to learn more tricks. Actually, you just need a different perspective.
Mm.
That's how you master it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all hidden in plain sight, but we don't see it until we see it, and then you see it everywhere. It's just like, oh my God, how did I not see this?
Mm.
But the filter needs to come off first before you can truly see.
It's like a game of I Spy, and then it's just there all the time, and you're like, what? What is that?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know it's, it sounds easy in theory. I know how scary that is for everyone. I went through all these, like, I called it the ghost train when, you're riding that train and the monsters show up from all sides and you just need to learn, hey, I'm just sitting on a ghost train. It's not real. It just
Yeah.
seems very real, very threatening.
Yes.
But when I master in those moments to just let go,
Yeah.
not trying to act, not trying to solve it, but really just making space. Every time we let go, we make space, energetically speaking. That's when the new can enter and the magic can happen. But
Mm.
when we try to control things, there's no space for anything. And that's the tough one. And we can just, it's really like going to a boot camp and to the energetic gym and retraining all of our
Yeah.
avatar, our consciousness, and rewriting the script, making new connections, neural pathways.
Mm.
It takes time. It's nothing you just do overnight. That's why this whole idea of the great awakening overnight is
Mm.
just not possible in the algorithm we're in that dream environment. It's impossible. So it needs it is an algorithm that talks in evolution. Of course, we can log out every time we can become the observer, then we're out of it. But if we want to use that avatar to go from one game to the other, we need to upgrade the avatar.
Yes.
And that's not going to be done just in an instant. It takes time.
Yeah.
Illusionary time.
Yes. Mm.
Yeah. And it becomes more fun that way. The more you can see it as a game, the more fun it becomes because you don't really take it so serious anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, that sounds like complete blasphemy to someone who's still deeply asleep in the old game,
Yes.
and still seeing all the drama and seeing death as something threatening and violence and everything. I mean, there's so many things we see every day where the human totally like goes into the moral code, the moral conditioning, what you do and don't do, how you treat each other and how you don't treat each other. And yeah, it telling someone that's a game who's not ready for it. Um,
So you're saying like ethics and morality is an illusion, basically.
um, yeah, I mean, it's a conditioning that we've learned. Um, the only like true, the only truth is the emptiness of everything, the nothingness, and the everything is in nothing. So we create out of nothing. It's the 0 point. That's how everything is created. We create whole universes out of that 0 point, and then we can bring it back to 0 point. But when we create this, we created this universe of duality, of conditional thinking, of karma, of cause and effect.
Mm.
If this, then that. All of that are conditions we're creating every day. That's how the whole game works. That's how we learned it. And we've learned a moral code that comes with this. If you do this to me, that offends my moral code.
Yeah. Yes.
But there actually is none. Nothing is real. But in that game, it's very real. In the new game, we have a completely different code, which is based on unconditional. So we don't have karma.
Mm.
But we can't start the new game when we're still carrying karma,
Yes.
when we still think in good and bad and light and dark, and when we still have a moral code that confirms that belief. And that is just something, that's why the mind needs these narratives in a transition period. and the dream is rearranged and gives the mind a narrative to transition from A to B. Because if not, it would not understand, and it would fight harder. So
Yes.
we need that's like when we're seeing ourselves on a higher level, and we're all the coders and programmers of this game and this transition. It's brilliant how we do it.
Mm.
At the same time, it requires patience because it's not overnight, and everyone is living in the golden age, and it's all
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. We're still in the well, as John says, the baby steps phase. So
Right. Yeah.
and this is why it's so extra important for those who are watching, for everyone who is awake, to really just take hold each other's hands and take these baby steps together, because we're only walking each other home.
We are, and there's not there. It's like we always see like just the one side or the other side. It's that like you're a Trump supporter or you're a Biden supporter, and both, as an example, both are right in their perception. Both are absolutely right, but at the same time, it's the same thing. It's duality, and it's a codependency of something outside of you. It doesn't matter if you're codepending on Trump as the savior or you're codepending on Biden as the savior.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's still a codependency.
Yes.
And in the end, the narrative does not really matter how it plays out. What matters is that people start seeing the mirror of, oh my God, I'm giving my power away.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. And that's why we need the narratives, so we can see better.
Yeah.
We can experience. There is no experience without narrative.
Yes.
I don't know if you've ever seen Westworld. That's a
Not
series.
yet. No, that's something I keep meaning to watch.
Yeah,
And
that's
Jessica, you need to watch Westworld. So, I love Game of Thrones and all things fantastical, but apparently Westworld is a whole new level of that kind of stuff.
well, it's just very fascinating because in the end, it gives you so many clues how this whole game works, how narratives work, and it gives you so many aha moments. So
Yes.
that's something I'd really. It is violent sometimes, so there's some trigger happy time too for a lot of people dealing with the violence in it. But at the same time, oh my God, there's so much back-end information of how this whole universe is created. Brilliantly done.
Amazing.
Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was. Anything you would like to add?
No, I mean that was a good start, right?
Yeah.
And if somebody's interested in more, I mean, I can talk about anything for hours, really, if you don't stop me. So yeah, there is all the platforms, and we can share the links.
I'll do that. Yeah.
The Wake Up Experience is more for the personal quest, while Fast Forward Movement is more for the new paradigm and how it looks like. And we've just now published the source code as a card game. So that's a fun thing you can integrate in your daily life. So that's a link we can post. Or you can just, it's part of that boot camp to like reflect and train yourself to take a different perspective. So we can share that. And other than that, I'm available on all the platforms if somebody has a question. Like you say, we're all walking each other home.
Absolutely. Yeah. Time for
I'm
more.
really grateful you're doing these. That's so important.
No, I mean, it gives me such joy and passion because I realized that beforehand I was very much in my own head, kind of narcissistically masturbating about the universe, which is fine, which is great, it's fun. But I realized I needed to do more, and realize that you are me and we are each other. We are the one self. We are, and putting pieces of the mosaic, pieces of the puzzle together is even more exciting and wonderful.
Yeah. And that's what we're excited about with FF Movement is,
Yeah.
we know that like the past 3 years for us was all preparation of that new blueprint, like putting it on paper, starting the first prototypes, learning what's, what's working, what's not working.
Mm.
It's all about learning by experience. And at the same time, we just know the puzzle pieces will come together more and more, because more people are now starting to become really bored by the old narratives because nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
It's just more of the same. And that's what I'm really excited about, to really start like co-creating and prototyping with more people, really focused on the new game, which has nothing to do with the old. And we have more people now ready to make that transition and to start the co-creative process, which doesn't mean it's all clean. You can still carry some patterns, but at the same time, what makes it so powerful is the community becomes your most clear mirror you can get, because it's radically honest, and
Yes.
you're just basically really walking each other home in a fast forward way. So that's what we're really excited about, and we're just about to we're almost done overhauling the website again, and we're going to integrate a public social media platform that is just for us, for Fast Forward Movement. At the same time, it's public, everyone can see, totally transparent, what's going on there.
Yeah.
But if somebody actually, that's for everyone who just wants to observe. But at the same time, if somebody wants to start participating and co-creating and contributing, then you just make your profile and you become a member. So that's almost done. And yeah, we'll see what that will bring. And we don't know either. Nothing is fixed in stone, and it's all augmented co-creation. We don't know the outcome. We just know we're going from moment to moment, and there's an impulse, and someone else has an impulse, and then there's a result at some point, which is also never a final result. But that's the beauty, that you no longer plan into the future. You no longer have a fixed idea what the outcome should be. You just, have an intention, and then you just go from there with your passion, and you share your passion with other people who share their passion. And that's what's going to bring the new. We just need to let go of the idea that we know how it looks like, because we don't.
Exactly. I don't know if you agree, but I made a brief video on this channel called Creativity. And I used the analogy of the video game. You know how in a video game you see yourself, but you're in kind of like observer mode, and then the avatar is moving along.
Yeah.
And on the game, on the screen, you can only see so far. In the distance, it's all pixelated. Yeah. It's all pixels. But when you approach, the pixels become more clearly defined. So it's really about moving forward, not knowing what's going to be revealed, in the distance, really. Yeah. But because you're the player, you just move forward because it's a game.
Yeah, and right? And so excited about what's so exciting about the new game is we are creating our narratives.
Yeah,
it's no longer a preset of narratives that we can just engage in and choose from. Actually, we go and we create our own narrative, and that one narrative we've started to create is Absolutia and the Absolutia's life. Just for the fun of it, doesn't mean that New Earth will be called Absolutia. It's just a part of it, part of a new narrative. And I'm looking forward to see more narratives, because what makes it interesting, to see these new narratives that we are creating as we speak, to really create a new game for all of us.
Yeah.
But we can't create the new when we're focused on the old.
Yeah.
That just doesn't work. So
John Lennon called it Newtopia.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
yeah.
it's beautiful, and we're totally excited about it. We can see that it's coming faster and faster
Yeah,
because the old is truly breaking down now and falling apart.
yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
one has to remind themselves not to take that crumbling of the old seriously and personally, because I'm seeing a lot of well, I wasn't myself, but in the collective, a lot of fear-based attachment, and they would rather crumble with the old rather than jump ship to the new.
And it's either by flow or by force. I
Yeah.
mean, at some point you're forced to jump because the comfort zone just falls away, and that's what we would call a major crisis, collective crisis.
Yeah.
And that's what's coming. I don't know exactly how it's going to look like, but from the energetic dynamics, there's no other way. It's coming. We've already seen it building up with the lockdowns and the coronavirus. Brilliant narrative. And who knows what's next? Economic breakdown, money disappearing overnight. I don't know,
Mm.
but it's gonna be intense
Yes.
because all that we're interested now as a whole is end that old game and start a new game.
Mm.
So we want as many cognitive dissonances as possible so people crash their belief systems about what has value.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you're crushing the values of the old game of the monopoly, which is all about money
Yeah.
and about possession and about physical value. That's the old earth-based age, like where like earthly value was like materialistic value was totally like the value in the game, and now we're moving into air, into Aquarius,
Mm.
and it's all about creativity, about about the things that are in the in the air, like
Mm.
it no longer has the physical value. And
Mm.
it's also not about introducing a new currency. That might be an intermediate narrative that's happening, but once we fully remember we're all one, why would you need money? Why would you need trade?
Yeah.
um, that's just all part of that duality program, that we need an equal exchange between two parties. It's not how nature works. Nature shares unconditionally, and every participant does what it's designed to do and what brings you joy and what is your passion. And then you don't care, you just contribute, and you're provided for by the organism.
Mm.
But that just takes time to really see that there's a whole new world possible. That's why we need these intermediary narratives to
Yeah.
bring people to that realization.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually, people will realize. Oh, everyone will realize that the universe has your back because you're the universe.
Yeah, right.
Basically.
Yeah, and one of the mantras that always help me is you can't fuck it up. Whatever you do, you can't fuck it up.
Can't fuck
Just
this
go.
up.
Just play. Just play. And sometimes you just need to challenge your reality and see what happens.
Yeah.
And we're all still here. After many times we thought, okay, now we're dead, we're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never cease to amaze myself by
Yeah. Isn't
continuing.
that just amazing
Mm.
how it always continues?
Mm. The,
Mm-hmm.
the never-ending story.
That is. Oh, that's another really good one.
Yeah.
Lots of like about the nothing in there,
Mm. Mm.
where we see the danger of the nothing. And in the end, nothing is nothing. It's just the chance to build a new world.
Yeah,
That's the never ending story.
absolutely.
Cool.
Well, Vera, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Jesse.
And for those who are watching, thank you so much for tuning in.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us.
And as always, be free and have fun. All right. We shall continue for a few minutes, but I'm going to stop the recording.
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Much love.